Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report. I'm answering questions from the Dog Pound during our live show, which airs Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Cool dude JT, I beg your pardon. Joe Flacco for MVP. Joe Flacco for Comeback Player of the Year. I think Kevin Stefanski is locked up Coach of the Year. Like, Dan Campbell's going to make a good argument for it, but ultimately what Kevin Stefanski did this year, you put all 31 other coaches in his shoes, and I don't know if any of them get to 11, maybe even 12 wins. So, Joe Flacco for Comeback Player of the Year, Stefanski for Coach of the Year, and Myles Garrett for Defensive Player of the Year. Who says no? Greg with a $2 super chat. My roommate / BFF from the service is a Ratbird fan. I feel bad for you, Greg. And hopefully that Ratbird fan has nothing to cheer for in January. Lil Beam, do you think the Browns should release Jordan Akins during free agency? Jordan Akins, I thought he signed just a one-year contract. I'm going to double check right now. I remember they signed him during like March Madness. I filmed a video outside the bar, and I don't really remember a whole ton of the video. But Jordan Akins, he just signed a 2-year contract. So, yeah, I could see Jordan Akins being released because he was not that red zone threat I think the Browns were hoping he could be this year. Jessica DeVoit, should we sign Kenny Golladay and safety Bryce Callahan for the playoffs? Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So let's start with Kenny Golladay. I was a big fan of Kenny Golladay when he was with the Lions. I thought he was a very talented receiver, led the NFL in receiving touchdowns one year. But then he had some just effort issues in New York. And no team, I've heard zero buzz, zero chatter around Kenny Golladay since the Giants released him back in February, I believe. So I'm not quite sure what kind of shape Kenny Golladay is in, if he's been working out, if he's ready to join a playoff team or at least join a practice squad. So I've got my concerns about Kenny Golladay and how much he really wants to play football after getting a lot of guaranteed money and kind of just checking out. As for Bryce Callahan, he's more of a nickel cornerback. At one point, he was arguably the best nickel corner, but injuries really derailed what could have been a very, very lucrative career. The Browns are pretty good at corner, right? If you're looking to sign a safety, I don't think Bryce Callahan's that guy for you. I think Callahan's a better corner than he would be safety. So for now, I'm very content with rolling with the next man up. Even if Delpit and or Thornhill is not available for the playoffs, I loved what I've seen out of Ronnie Hickman and DeAnthony Bell. I think you roll with those two guys. Deron Harmon has played well as well. I think you are good to go with the safeties you currently have on the roster. Oren Smith, do you think to sign Jarvis Landry or someone else? I got to wait and see how serious Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore's injuries are. But if the Browns expect both those players to be healthy and available for the wild card round, I don't think they're going to be in a rush to sign anyone. Remember, I know it's late and you want to go on a playoff push, but just signing guys for the sake of signing players is not really something GMs do. One, they got to pay the guy money. Two, that takes away rollover cap for 2024, which the Browns need to do, even if it's not a huge chunk of change. But again, if you have healthy players, I don't think the Browns are going to sign Jarvis Landry just for the hell of it. Plus, I mean, add him to your practice squad before you add him to your 53-man roster. But you're going to call him up, and who are you going to make inactive on game days now? So I think if those two guys, Cooper and Moore, are healthy, very long shot we see Juice rejoin the Browns. Jessica, La'el Collins signed with the Cowboys. So unfortunately, no Collins to the Browns. I appreciate the question very much. Joshua Miller, what are the rules around calling up practice squad players? How many can we call up for week 18? You can elevate 2 players from your practice squad each week. You could elevate a guy up to 3 times in a year before you have to permanently add him to your 53-man roster or release him. So the Browns are not going to call up the whole practice squad, right? They can only call up 2 guys. So what they would likely do if they want to sit some players is they would make their 6 inactives, guys like Joe Flacco and other players on the roster who are guaranteed to sit for the entire game, and they would have those be the healthy scratches. And then they've got the Isaiah McGuire and Siaki Ikas of the world be active on game day, and then they would call up like a Tommy Togi. I mean, not even Tommy Togi. Oh, he got signed by the Falcons, actually. So I'm not quite sure which practice squad players. Maybe Austin Watkins. That could be a lot of fun. I can get behind that. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's show, I do want to highlight our sponsor, which is Factor. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's a ready-to-eat meal delivery service that takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep me going no matter what's on the schedule. Head to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. That's code BrownsChat50 at factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. Ken G, next one up. Is the current roster enough, or who do you think showing? Oh, this is tough. Is the current roster enough, or who do you think the showing? Who do you think they could show up to sign? What do you think they're asking? Who? Okay, I'm going to interpret this as who do I think the Browns could sign to improve the current roster. I hope that's what you intended, Ken. I know sometimes the autocorrect in Super Chats is super annoying. I think the current roster is enough. I don't think you're finding guys in January. They're going to walk into that locker room, and they're going to be impact players in a playoff game after not playing all year long. That's just 1 in a million, and they kind of got that already with Joe Flacco. So if we are looking to sign a guy, I guess Jarvis Landry continues to be the most popular name, but no, I just don't think you're going to get much production at all from anyone that's a free agent at the moment. Avon, do you think the Browns should sign DPJ in the offseason? I don't. Didn't we see enough from DPJ this year to know he's someone that you don't want to give more than what you can get out of a rookie contract for, right? Like DPJ, he might get a 1-year, $1.5 million contract this offseason. I'd rather just draft a guy in the 6th round like DPJ and get the same type of production but for a third of the cost. Jessica, should we sign Micah Hyde next year? Browns are pretty good at safety, right? You just extended Delpit. You have Thornhill under contract for 2 more seasons. You like DeAnthony Bell. You like Ronnie Hickman. I think the Browns are going to bring back the same 4 safeties next year. I don't think Micah Hyde's coming to Cleveland. Will Beam, do you think the Browns should give Dustin Hopkins a 3-year, $15 million extension this offseason? The Bears just extended their kicker, Cairo Santos, and they paid him, I think, $8 million a season. So, yeah, 3 years, $15 million, $5 million a pop. I've got no problem with that. Kickers are so tough to come by. I was actually thinking about this just the other night. Do you think it's harder to find a good kicker or a good quarterback? Like, if you ignore what's more important, it's tough to find good kickers. Everyone's chasing that next Justin Tucker. That's why the 49ers and the Browns are using 3rd and 4th round picks on kickers. So I think you got a great kicker in Dustin Hopkins. I'd sign him to that contract. Tomorrow, Cuber, next one up on the show. Here we go. If you played football, what position do you think you would be best at? Bench. I talk about football. I played football in middle school and into high school, and I was a right tackle. So I do not want to be tasked with the blind side, so I will stay at right tackle. Avon, do you think Elijah Moore should retire? No. I mean, unless the head injury is life-changing and it's super-duper serious, I'm not going to tell Elijah Moore what to do or what not to do. So, no, I don't think so. Cool guy. Besides the AFC South winner to verse, I'd want to get the Chiefs in the playoffs if we get the 6th seed as they suck, like really bad. What do you think? Cool guy, the Browns can't go from 5 to 6. So even if the Chiefs get the 3 seed, the Browns aren't going to be able to play them in the first round. And maybe later in the playoffs, they could play each other. But I agree with your overall train of thought that the Chiefs are not a really good football team this year. Now, maybe they turn it on in the postseason, and then the last team you want to face in January and February, because we know Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid should never be counted out. But this year, it just feels like what ultimately caught up to them was Kansas City mailing it in on the wide receiver position. Something I've said for the last year or so is I know the Chiefs won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill, but trading Tyreek Hill away looks to be like a big mistake for Kansas City. Ultimately, it's washed away because they won a Super Bowl, so no one's going to think about it. But I don't think Kansas City expected Tyreek Hill to be this good 2 years removed from Kansas City. If they knew that he'd be this productive, they would have probably paid him. So I ultimately think the lack of experience and just quality at the wide receiver position is going to catch up to KC in the playoffs. Chase the dream. When the Browns win the Super Bowl, what do we do with Flacco? That's kind of the million-dollar question, and that's the best problem to have. If the Browns win the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco, how can I stand here and say, don't bring Flacco back, right? I mean, he just won you the Super Bowl. I don't want to be too short-sighted, though, because we have seen quarterbacks win Super Bowls like Nick Foles and Joe Flacco and not be great the next year. So it'd be a very bold decision for Andrew Berry, but I would probably say Joe Flacco is not going to be your week one starter in 2024, almost no matter what happens. Voltus Goll, last question. Do you think Ronnie, Hickman, DeAnthony Bell will be the future stars for the Browns franchise? I'm not quite so sure about that because Grant Delpit has been a star on this defense. And when he's healthy, he's the starter. There's no question about it. So I think DeAnthony Bell and Ronnie Hickman will be players that could have some great careers elsewhere. And as Browns fans, we'll know when their rookie contracts are up and they get signed by another team, that team is getting a really good safety, even if they don't have a ton of great or a ton of stats altogether. Ultimately, the Browns have some good safeties right now, and it's unfortunate that they got, so much talent buried behind other talent when they could maybe spread it around a little bit more. But Hickman and Bell, they sure look like starting safeties in the NFL. Now, before we get on out of here, what is your Super Bowl matchup prediction? Let me know down in the comment section to wrap up today's mailbag. Who you got in the Soupy? I want to hear from everyone watching.